You've tuned into the Rev Up Podcast, broadcasting straight from Ducati Sanford in sunny central Florida. We're not just talking motorcycles, we're diving deep into the brilliant minds of business leaders, entrepreneurial pioneers, speed demons on the track, influential game changers, and downright rad people crushing this game called life. Let's rev up.
Welcome to the Rev Up Podcast. I'm Nate. This is Ducati Dave.
What's up, man?
And we have a special guest today, Paul Holton with Crucial Motorsports. He's a McLaren driver as well. We're super stoked to have him. So we're looking forward to this conversation. We want to do this for a while.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I, for the last 15 years of my life, have been chasing the dream of driving race cars. More recently, actually running a race team, a sports car racing team, as opposed to either circle track or drag racing or the various forms of car racing there are.
Yeah.
And with that comes the love of all things mechanical and gas powered. I think that's kind of my life in a nutshell.
A little bit of it, right?
Chasing the motorsports dream. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's fun. It's a great time, and then other times you get to meet cool guys like yourselves when the dreams cross paths, and you're like, oh, motorcycles are the same thing. Fast motorcycles, fast cars. It's all a good time.
Right on. So I looked, and it was like, I think 2012 or 2013, you kind of started racing amateur.
Yeah, pretty much. Like 2011, 2012, started doing a little bit of go-karting, and then 2013 kind of moved into, it's 10 years ago now, moved into like amateur racing in cars, and slowly kind of progressed through that. And there's a bajillion levels of amateur racing in the States. And then out of there, ended up meeting a team that I spent a lot of time with that was out of Canada at the time, and moved through the professional ranks with them all the way up to the highest level of GT sports car racing in the States.
So are you like an apprentice? Like, how does that start? So just so you guys know, I'm not a race car guy at all. So I'm asking maybe some, simple questions, but I'm just curious, how, do you come in and you have to have so much experience?
Apprentice is a great way to put it, except instead of not getting paid, you're paying to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. It's all, motorsports is driven by money, and no matter what, every time a car goes on a racetrack, same thing as a car going down the road, it costs money. It just costs a lot more money on the racetrack. So there's always a financial deal behind everything. So it takes money to get in. You've got to spend money to get there. And then ideally you actually are good enough to progress and get to the point where you're paid, or having someone pay for you to be there. It takes a lot of progression, a lot of time, and a lot of money to actually build your way up and build the skills. Cause it's like anything else. It's a learned skill.
Yeah.
Nobody is just born with this innate driving ability.
Right.
As much as there's guys with talent, but they still have to develop the talent.
Right.
We don't just come out of the womb and know how to turn left and right really well.
Right. And then when you're racing a McLaren, we're talking a high ticket race car, I'm assuming, so.
Yeah. At that level, all the race cars are expensive. There's GM's coming out with a new Corvette GT3 car, and it's $1 million.
Wow.
All of the race cars now. There's a Ford GT3, a Mustang. It's like $1 million.
Gosh.
They're all super expensive, and they're all kitted out to the absolute max.
And how many cars do you have?
We currently have at Crucial, we own one race car.
Yeah.
Then we have 3 or 4 clients' cars that we keep under our services.
Gotcha. Is there any, when you're starting that race, are there rituals or things that you do or that kind of take place that you have to do to kind of get your mindset right before you?
So I'm super chill before we start things, because I'm a naturally pretty high strung and amped up guy. And that's the last thing that you want when you're starting a race or you're getting in a race car. You want to be super calm. Right. So there's some guys, you watch an F1 race and you always see Pierre Gasly doing a reaction time warm up with tennis balls.
Yeah.
And that obviously works for him, but for me that amps me up too much. So I'm I just want to be relaxed, chilled out. If I can sit in the race car and actually fall asleep. And in fact, there was a 2016 I raced in, it was Audi's junior driver development series in Europe. It's called the Audi Sport TT Cup. And the way they did things, we actually had to sit in the race car for 25 minutes before the race. And absolutely fall asleep every time.
Really?
Super comfortable. You're belted in nice and tight. It's like being in a, if you've ever slept in a weighted blanket.
Right.
It's like being belted in and held in real nice and tight. You sit there and go to sleep.
I'm totally opposite. I'm completely opposite. So when I was
not
road
you.
racing, seriously.
You mean you're
when
not riddled with like?
No, like I literally am. I have to listen to like get myself pumped, which is really weird. Like you'd think that, but it's not. When I go to the track, I have to pump myself up. So I put on like the headphones and I'll listen to something really hardcore to get my blood pumping, and I'll jog around for a minute and just try to get my blood flowing. I'm not that where I can sit in there and be calm and like. And I see that from a lot of the top level guys. Now, remember, I'm just amateur, trying to hurt myself out there. You hearing that is so crazy because you're such a mellow person as it is when we hang out. But you have a lot of, like when we rode together, like I could tell your style, you adapt really fast and want to go and like me. You know what I mean? But I never thought you would get in there and fall asleep.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's.
I'm not that way.
You got to be relaxed. If I'm amped up, the decision making is going to be really poor.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, and I'm not that
that's
way.
That's because you got to get in that mindset and like have that
tunnel
clarity.
vision.
Yeah. So I guess everyone operates in different ways, and
you've got to be able to turn it on too. Like some people can't turn it on; they need 4 laps to turn it on.
Right.
4 laps, 5 laps to turn it on. And you have to develop the skill of saying, "I'm going to sit in this race car and I know what it can do.
Right.
Everything's warmed up, tires are good to go. Like that first lap, you are on it.
Yes.
And
learning to not wear out your tires or gas or everything, right?
Saving fuels, saving tires, It's the same thing as when you were racing your motorcycles, but it's actually probably more critical on the motorcycle.
It is,
a smaller contact patch.
Yeah, you have nothing
and you have
around
no protection.
Yeah. With us, like I always wanted you to go out with me, but I still haven't gotten back to where I'm healthy enough, and we'll talk about your health and stuff like that, where I feel comfortable to be able to want to play and have fun. I want to go out and everybody's like, oh, come out, we'll do a track day. And I'm like, you don't understand. I don't have that chill, let me go ride around. I'm going to push myself because that's what I've always done. I push myself in everything. To get the trophy, I push myself. You know what I mean? Everything I do, I have to go full on because if not, then to me, it's not worth it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I still have that problem. I've got a couple clients that I coach, and they'll go out to do a day at the racetrack, and they just drive around and don't look at the lap time. They're like, "Oh, I'm having a good time."
Yeah,
and I don't understand it at all. I live and die by the lap time and by the delta, whether you're faster or slower every single lap.
Right.
Some guys just like to go out and clear their heads, and then you've got guys like me who are a slave to the lap time no matter what. Same. Even when we're just out there coaching, we probably don't need to be going that fast.
Right, but you still got to know.
But you still want to do it.
Yeah.
So you went to one of his, was that like a track day experience, or what was it? Was that a race? You went to
he invited us to Daytona for the
private test.
Yeah, and so me and my sons went out, and it was the first time they met you. And he treated us so good, man. We went out, got to check out the garages, looked around and then watched them ride, and it's amazing, man, because I've done it on a motorcycle, right? So I know the corners, and we went up to the banking and watched the cars go by, and they're sideways like that, and my kids were so happy, man, and thank you for doing that, by the way.
No, we're happy to do it. What's funny was I think the organizer of that got in trouble because so many people brought guests. They're like, nobody was supposed to have guests. Meanwhile, we have like 400 names on here that weren't on the original list when everybody signed in. I don't know whatever happened with that, but I know that one of the Daytona security guys was like, this isn't supposed to be happening.
We're so glad to be a part of that, though. It's cool.
Yeah, that was a good test. We had a couple drivers that were in that car for the first time ever, in their first ever GT3 test. And at that level of car is so fast and so physical.
Yeah.
It really, really wears you out. I know one of the guys got out of the car and was like, oh my gosh, I got to go to the gym.
Yeah. And so that led up into you doing that
was before
Rolex,
the Rolex
right?
a couple years ago. Yeah. That was as Crucial's first attempt at the Rolex.
And you guys were doing good.
Yeah, we were doing good. And then a couple hours in, we had some contact with a car in a faster class. And that eventually we spent an hour repairing the car and then spent all night 20 laps down. It's middle of the night, we ended up retiring because when you're an hour and a half behind, you can't really make it up.
Yeah. It's like we were really pulling for you, man, because I, with what we do and bringing everybody together in the motorcycle world, all of our guys follow you. You know what I mean? And they watch you. And because you've ridden with them, you've hung out, you did the toy ride with us, you've done all these different things. So people start gravitating and watching you and want to know, what you're doing and how you're doing.
And the groups that you guys managed to put together are super fun. Like those rides have been awesome. I've kind of miss them. I have to join the toy ride this year on something.
Yeah. It's December 16th.
Yeah.
On one, so.
Well, you can come with me in the car if you want. If you don't want to ride.
So what happened to your foot?
Yeah.
I looked at I stalked your Instagram this morning. I was like, what's this guy been up to? Snowmobiling's all over your freaking Instagram.
So I grew up going skiing and snowboarding every year with my family, and that as I got older transitioned out of kind of the resort style skiing into more backcountry stuff, like on cat skiing trips and skinning trips. And then eventually I was like, I can go way farther if I get on a snowmobile to get out and snowboard. And then I started riding the snowmobiles, and it's the most fun thing ever. Yeah. It's super challenging because it's the most awkward skill ever. Everything is backwards. You counter steer like on a motorcycle, but on your motorcycle it is a force based kind of counter steer. Like the movement's very little. Force, but on a sled it's displacement based. So your counter steer on the sled is like full opposite lock, and then lean the thing over.
I'd crash on
I've never done that before.
My whole first year was miserable, and then at some point it clicked.
It clicked.
But the sleds are the coolest thing on the face of the planet because they're all 2-strokes for the mountains.
What are you running, like Yamahas, Polaris?
I've been a Polaris guy for the past few years. I just bought my first Skidoo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see what I think. But I got a couple years ago. I bought my first turbo. It's a 2-stroke turbo. Which is
that the one you had on the back of the truck that you brought to the shop?
Yeah,
that thing was gnarly. Oh my god!
And the engineering behind a 2-stroke turbocharged engine is incredible for what they do, because of the way the 2-stroke motor works, and I can't explain how it works. It's like voodoo magic.
It's like voodoo magic.
But when the boost kicks in and the noises it makes, they're absolutely awesome. And then the places you can go is incredible. I mean, in Colorado, you can snowmobile up to over 13,000 feet at the top of a mountain.
See, I'm from northern Michigan, and we used to get on snowmobiles, but we'd go bar hopping.
Yeah, see, that's a different type of riding. You ride down the trail. You might do 100 and 150 miles a day,
right?
In that, right? And you stop at bars, and you've got gas stations on the trail and all this. Whereas I go off into the backcountry, I'll do like 15 miles, and on the sled odometer, it's like 75 or 80 miles because the track is just spinning the whole time in deep, deep snow.
But how did you do your leg?
Well, it's not snowmobile related, unfortunately. I played soccer growing up, and I recently started playing again. And 2 months into playing soccer, I managed to break my ankle.
Yes.
So I'm currently recovering from that, hoping that I get some time to sled come January. But yeah, it's tough. It happens. It's funny. We do all these crazy sports, and you always hurt yourself in the one that is not the important one.
Yes.
It's the tale as old as time. I can't remember. Well, I can, but I can't remember very many incidents where I've had friends that got hurt in a race car. But I know a lot of my friends from racing who got hurt doing something outside of racing.
Yes, that's like the story of my life.
Same.
So, and we're gonna do something really cool coming up. Probably.
Yeah, we've got things in the pipeline.
Yeah. That has to do with the snow part and a little bit of dirt bike.
Snows and dirt bikes and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, we have a little surprise we're going to do eventually when...
it's going to take us a year to get it out there.
Yeah, we're exactly. Gonna do it. You're going to see some cool stuff coming.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I've enjoyed a bunch of motorcycles from you guys.
Yeah. And you haven't just had any. You had... So let's back up. So you got the Corsa, right? And then you got the V4R.
No, it was V4R, then Corsa. Yeah.
Okay, and then... So, funny story. The new bike is coming out. It's the 2022 V4S. They just redesigned it. And he goes, I want the first one, right? So I said, okay, cool. So he goes, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do the configurator. And I go, all right. And he goes, and I'll bring it in. And so he brings me in this, like, 4 sheets of paper. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay.
Checked every box.
And I go, did you mess up and click things twice? And he goes, no, why? And I'm like, I've never seen one so big, like so much stuff. So I'm looking, we go through everything, and he's like, no, that's what I want. This is what I want. And we're going through the configurator, making sure he didn't double click things and stuff like that.
I had parts that superseded other parts.
Yes.
Like you couldn't stick both of them on the bike at the same time.
And it turned out to be the best looking, the best sounding V4S that we've ever done. It was
Well,
so
that was
cool.
that was the bike we did the Undertale exhaust for the
first
time.
one,
That was
yeah,
like
the
when that
first one.
first dropped.
It was Undertale dry clutch with the magnesium clutch cover still on it.
Yes.
Like,
So it
because
wasn't super
it
loud.
Made everything. It wasn't super loud, and
Yeah.
it made everything match. Because one of the most frustrating things about driving riding a dry clutch Ducati is coming into the gas station and somebody telling you it's broken.
You're broke. Yes.
It's like, no.
I have a story about that.
It's
I
fine.
swear.
I promise. Like it just makes this noise.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, you don't know.
Yes, no, and it's a true statement. I had built a bike for Ed Brown from Patron Tequila. It was the 1198 SP, and we didn't have gas at the dealership, so I ran across the street on it in 7-Eleven, and this dude came up, and he's like, "Yo, turn it off." And I'm like, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "It's broken. It's broken." And so I'm pulling it
The
out,
gearbox is
letting it out.
exploded.
And it was so funny. So I love hearing that stories. Dry clutch stories are my favorite.
Yeah, and I've had two dry clutch bikes.
Yeah.
Both of which I loved. My ideal bike, I don't know how they would ever do it. If they could take the V4 noise with the V4R noise, the R engine, the 998, with the torque that you get out of the 1103.
Yes.
It would just be the God's gift to
God,
motorcycling.
yes. Yeah.
It's the noise at 17,000 RPM that a V4R puts out is just ungodly, especially with an Akrapovic exhaust.
Oh God.
You remember the old Hooters bike nights?
Yes.
The
Oh
big
my
ones in
gosh.
Orlando.
Yeah.
I bought my first Ducati. It was a S2R 1000 dry clutch. I was so stoked on it, and I take delivery of the bike. I decide I'm going to go to the Hooters bike night, which is like the coolest bike night you can go to in Orlando.
436 next to the skating
So
ring.
I roll up to this bike night, and the parking lot is absolutely packed. And I roll in with my drag clutch, man, and there's this some chicks hanging out over by the side or whatever. And as soon as I pull in that
There was
lot,
chicks
man,
at your bike night?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
It was actually a lot of fun back then.
You had the Hooters girls there, and you had I just rolled up on this group of chicks hanging out, and I was like all badass on my new Ducati, and I roll in, and their heads turn, and they kind of just give me this really awkward look, of disgust, what is
wrong
happening
with your bike?
What pile of shit did this guy just roll in on? And I was just it kind of just sucked the fun out of it. I was like, man, and I'm trying to should I go and explain it to them, what's happening? Should I try? What should I do? So I just killed the bike, whatever.
No, you just go about what you were doing. You don't try.
But it's funny because all the dudes know when you hear a dry clutch, they know it's a Ducati. Yeah. They know it's going to be something cool. You know what I mean? And that's the one distinct thing about Ducatis is that sound. It doesn't matter even now. You can tell the sound of them. But we always knew when a dude came in from that bike night, it was always a Ducati, and we always kind of find our way over there because you don't get to see them a lot. Yeah. Now you see them a lot.
I had one I didn't get from you guys. I had a 996 with the dry clutch that lived in my. You guys did a service on it.
Yeah, we did a service.
Lived in my living room, and it had this dry clutch. Sounded exactly the same.
Yes.
Same as it's been. So it's literally been the same for 20 plus years.
You got into a craze of buying bikes for a little bit.
I get into things, and sometimes I get a little out of control.
Yeah. So because you bought those three from us. Then actually first you came in and bought the Desert Sled.
Yeah, and I was going to buy a
Hyper. Yeah.
You guys thought I was crazy that day.
We did. We really
feel
did.
who is this guy? He comes in here talking about snowmobiles, and he wants to buy a Hyper or a Desert Sled.
Yeah, and you had flip flops on.
You came in with pink shorts, flip flops, and your hair a mess. And Oscar's like, I don't know who this dude is, but he's kind of funny. You were funny as hell. You were real. You clicked really good with us and Oscar when he was with me. And Oscar's like, dude, there's something about this guy. And I'm like, I don't know. So we started talking, and you're like, I don't want to spend that kind of money on that. I'll just do the Desert X. And I go, all right, cool. And from that point on, you became a part of our family.
I do that all the time too. It's when I first get into something, I'm hesitant to spend the money, and then once I'm like, oh yeah, I do like this. The floodgates open. It's what do I want now, and how do I get it immediately?
Right.
I've got an instant gratification problem.
Yeah, same. You're the only one I think that doesn't have that.
Yeah, it just kind of depends what it is. If it's I don't know, garbage pail kid cards,
I know,
and stuff like that.
I gave him a badass skateboard for Christmas a couple years back.
Decks.
It was because I didn't know he was into skateboard decks like I am, but garbage pail kids of everything.
Guitars,
guitars,
vinyl. I'm into weird stuff.
Are you into just the decks, collecting them, or do you skate?
I'm a little too old to skate but
he
I
did.
used to. But yeah. So now it's kind of just a collection. My son.
His son's amazing. He's very much like me and you, where he gets on something, he learns it, gets very good at it, and then moves to the next thing. And that's how I've been my whole life. You've been that way, right? And like you said, there's sometimes people are natural, but it takes them a minute. He's the same way. Every time I see him, first time I saw him, he was on the scooters, getting rad on the scooters, right? Then he got into the big BMX bikes, which is what I do. And he's out there killing it on that. And then the Sur-Ron he kills it on. Skateboards he kills it on. So he's going to be that next level coming up like us, you know? Well, it's us, then you, then him.
We got to get him into McLaren. Maybe I'll send him out to the racetrack with you.
Yeah. Because you started on go-karts, didn't you?
Yeah, like 4-stroke go-karts. I didn't do too much of it. There wasn't a go-kart track super accessible where I was. It was an hour away, which is, in all the scheme of things, not very far. But
it's not that far, but it seemed like it.
Well, when you're 14 and you require your parents to take you there, it's farther than everything. It's further than you think.
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, you can kind of progress out of there, but go-karts is where almost everyone starts, unless you're a guy. So motorsport or racing in general, it's motorsports in general, is one of the few professional sports in the world where anybody can go and compete with the pros.
Yeah.
And that's how the majority of most of professional racing is pro-am racing, where you have a professional driver who's rated as a professional driver. We have a rating system, which it's not a conversation I'll get into because it's a little bit messy.
Yeah, I know.
But in that rating system, then they have to have a amateur rated driver with them. And that amateur rated driver is usually the guy that's either paying for the race car to be on the track because he's just there having fun, or he's sponsoring it. And it's some sort of business deal that he's doing, and he's getting something out of it. Not only is he getting to drive, but there's a business deal going that makes the car go around the racetrack.
That's really cool. I was learning that with you, that it's not just like coming up the ranks and stuff like that. There is a whole business side that makes it stronger and really put you guys out there more and helps you out.
Like I said, the race car doesn't go around the racetrack without money.
No.
When we were at Daytona for that test, every single time that car went by, you could light $200 on fire.
Oh yeah.
Easy.
Boom.
So how does that work? Like, how do you guys bring in like revenue to like fund? Like, how do you fund?
It's exactly that. It's cultivating clients and sponsors. And most of the sponsor deals are getting interesting now. They're all B2B stuff. So like back in the day, like the heyday of NASCAR, Tide would throw or Home Depot would throw a bunch of money just to get their name on the car. There's nothing special about it. Now it's all B2B. It's how can I connect two guys and manage to skim some off the top is a really poor way to say it. But how can I build into this deal so that we can go racing?
Right.
I think the most blue chip example of it, it's not happening anymore, unfortunately, but Chip Ganassi Racing had the Target car for forever in both in IMSA, NASCAR, and in IndyCar.
Right.
And the way that worked was Target would go to their suppliers, to their brands that you see in Target, and they would give them end cap space, which in a store is super valuable, right? Everybody sees the end caps no matter what aisle you go down. And then they would turn around and say, you get end cap space. And then they would turn around and fund the racing. And the car is red and has the giant Target logo. And then on the car in small, you can see like Axe and all the little tiny sponsors that actually got the end caps.
Right.
So like that's a good B2B deal where Target goes, okay, we want to put our brand out there. How can we make it so that we don't have to pay for it and the guys who are paying for it get value?
Wow. All right.
So that's the way that sponsorship kind of works now. Even NASCAR does. If you want to be a NASCAR sponsor at any level, they do like 2 or 3 times a year what they call sponsor summits, where everybody who sponsors a NASCAR gets invited, and they all get to get in the same room and do business together. So it's more than just getting your brand out there for the public to see. Now it's like a conglomerate. It's a giant kind of melting pot to get all the brands together and get everything working.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then you just have guys who just pay to go do it.
Yes.
Guys who, billionaires, multi-millionaires who love it, found out they loved it, spent a bunch of time getting good at it. Sometimes they're retired and they do it. Sometimes it's what they do on their weekends.
On their weekends, yeah. We met one of them gentlemen there at Daytona.
Yeah, and he's now the CEO of his finance company in New York. So he's managed to, and he's like, man, I got to make more money so I can go racing.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, isn't that the truth? Everything we want to do, you got to spend more money and make more money.
Yep.
So recently I was driving through Winter Park and I see there's a giant McLaren dealership being built.
Yes.
I mean, this thing looks like Taj Mahal. It's sick, dude. It's like,
you know where the Krispy Kreme is on Mills?
Yeah.
That's right next to it. I love that. That's the landmark that you just said.
Yeah,
I know where it is.
Yeah,
I know where the
exactly
Krispy Kreme is.
Yeah.
So that's McLaren. That's going to be the new McLaren Orlando dealership. Right. McLaren Orlando is a partner that we've worked with for the past few years through GT3 and GT4 racing. They're currently based in Titusville right now. That was their interim location. But that new spot in Winter Park will be the largest McLaren dealership in the world. I think it's 51,000 square feet. They have 12 service bays. They have a full-size car configurator, so it's a dedicated room with a 27-foot TV screen, and you can actually spec your car out life-size. You can stand there and go, I want those rims, that color, this, that, and the other, and I don't remember what the resolution was, but it was something absurd, like a 12K TV, or it was massive. And then I believe on top of that, you can actually get a live feed of your car, or you should be able to get a live feed of your car going down the production line. So when your car actually goes into production at MPC, McLaren Production Center, they have McLaren loves acronyms.
Yeah.
So you've got McLaren Technology Center, and then you go through this underground tunnel, and you've got McLaren Production Center. So you'll be able to actually go in there and watch your car get built.
Wow. So are the cars they're selling out of there, are those race cars? Are they street legal? Are these cars that like? Is it considered like they have like a luxury, like on-road standard brand, I guess?
Like a supercar?
Yeah.
It's like you go buy a new Lambo or whatever.
It's exactly the same.
Okay.
And same, like Lamborghini sells race cars and street cars.
Yeah.
All of these manufacturers, we used to take street cars and turn them into race cars.
Right.
And as cars have gotten more sophisticated with all the safety nannies and all sorts of radars and stuff like that, it's become increasingly hard to make them work as race cars. So the manufacturers decided to get involved, A, because they can make money, and B, because it looks good for them, where they actually build the race car. With all motorsports-based electronics, so there's none of the radar, none of the nannies. It's like a real race car. And then you, as a customer, can go and buy it and race it. And they'll provide you with engineering support sometimes, depending on what you're doing, where you're going, and you buy parts from them. Usually they have a parts truck available, so you don't have to carry a bunch of parts.
That's amazing.
It's amazing when it works.
And it's probably super expensive.
When they have what you need, it's great. When they don't have what you need, you go, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah.
So is that McLaren dealership? Is that a corporate owned store, or do they own it, or is it like a?
No, it's owned by a couple independently owned.
Okay.
Those guys own a couple different dealerships. They own McLaren North Jersey, McLaren Orlando.
Gotcha.
It's funny because the owners of that business, it started as their hobby / side gig, just because they liked the brand, and they made some really, really aggressive and good business decisions during COVID, and ended up being one of the top retailers in the world. So now they're building the largest McLaren dealership in the world in Winter Park, Florida, and they're going to be the only car dealership in Winter Park. Okay. In actual city limits of Winter Park.
It's in Winter Park proper. You're driving down. What is it, Mills or?
It's the intersection of Orlando and Mills.
I mean, it pops up out of nowhere. I mean, it's just you just look over. You're like, whoa. I mean, and it is a.
I'm gonna have to go check it out.
Store,
I want to check it out.
Wow, this is a serious store.
I think they're looking at grand opening during the Miami or right before the Miami F1 weekend next year.
Okay.
I was in there, 2 months ago. Funny enough, the owner recently broke his ankle.
Oh,
so we've been cripple buddies.
Nice.
Mine is I got off much easier than he did. But yeah, we were walking around in there, and he kind of walked me through and showed me everything they have planned, and I was just absolutely amazed. It's going to be an incredible facility.
Awesome. I hope they're successful. I'm glad you brought up F1 because that was a topic I wanted to talk about. I've seen so much more content. Popularity with F1 that I've never seen before. There must be a lot of momentum with that racing. I mean, is there a lot of is it becoming popular?
It's been heavily driven by the Netflix Drive to Survive.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I don't know how that deal got done when they first did it, but it was brilliant. It drove so many people to get into the sport. Miami, I don't remember what the numbers were, but I know COTA has been sold out. The COTA F1 race in Texas has been, the Austin, Texas F1 race. It's been sold out for the last 3 years because of it. I know Vegas, they were at capacity. Mm-hmm. So it's been, and actually I recently met the first person who is working in motorsports now. This woman's working for a series as a manager, a race series as a manager. And I was talking to her, and I was like, how'd you get into this? And she goes, oh, I watched Drive to Survive. And then I was like, I got to go racing. And I looked at her like she was crazy. And she's like, oh, you gave me the same reaction as everyone else. I'm like, no, that's awesome. Like, you watched a TV show and said, I want to go do that.
It's crazy. Like, it was probably like 6 months ago. I got up in the morning. It was like a Sunday morning. My wife was watching Full Swing on Netflix, the golf documentary or whatever. And she was so into it, like all the whatever, she was into it. And I'm like, what are you watching? She's like, oh, this golf show, it's really good. So I started watching it, and now she knows all this golf stuff. I'm like, it's so crazy how powerful those little Netflix mini docs are.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that there's a lot of people I follow that are talking about F1 all the time now. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Yeah. And it's becoming popular.
Yeah, and they have it's owned by an American company now, and I think before Liberty Media bought it, it was a very closed off thing. The guy who was running it didn't want to. He wanted to control everything, which I can understand.
Yeah.
But definitely, what they've done in the last 5 or 6 years since they purchased it, maybe it's been longer, is just incredible. They opened it up. There's real social media happening that wasn't happening before. There's the Netflix stuff. The TV broadcasting is really good. Like. Yeah, they're doing a really, really good job with it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was popular before, but like now it's like more mainstream,
definitely it's always been popular around the world, but what we're really seeing is the surge of it in the here in the US.
Yeah.
Like
same with MotoGP.
Kind of it's trickled over into everything. It's trickled into
soccer
sports cars
too, like MLS. Like that used to be more of that was a global sport, but it wasn't as big in the US. But now every major city has an MLS team, and those games are so fun. Like my family, we go to Orlando City games all the time, and they're a blast.
Yeah.
It's like it's becoming a norm in our American culture.
I think we're just kind of we just have a rise in spectator sports and events in terms of what we're like. Everybody wants to go and have the experience now. Yeah. Like experiential events are really important now to most brands' marketing. So I think that's just kind of the rise. Like sporting events in general have gotten more popular. Everything's kind of on the come up right now. Whether that's just with the overall economy or how we all feel about what we're doing with our lives or what, I can't tell you. But
seems like after
overall
COVID,
everything's growing.
It seems like after COVID, when people really had been saving or not really ever doing much with their lives, after that everything started to rise up. Right. And then people are starting to live their lives different now. So they saw the Netflix thing. They were home and they watched that with Drive to Survive. And I want to go see it now. And now it's getting bigger and bigger. And that's what it was, is you get stuck. Like I watch it as soon as it comes out, I binge watch it.
Well, we got locked down. Yeah. And then the people that locked themselves down, watched all this stuff on TV. And then they became fans. And they became fans, and now they're going to go watch it.
And people who never knew Max or Hamilton or all this stuff, now they know him as a household name. Yeah. And they're making stars out of people who were big over in Europe. Now they're big here. Same with Valentino Rossi, all that stuff. And they're actually doing that with MotoGP now. They're going to do that same style of Drive to Survive on MotoGP.
Netflix is doing it?
Yeah, they're working on it now.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It really is.
That is huge.
Because, me personally, I've been into motorcycle racing since I was young. So I watched like the hard to watch stuff when it used to be at like 12 o'clock at night, and you see Jeep. It wasn't even called MotoGP. It was called Grand Prix. That's all it was. And I got to see Rossi as young and it get bigger. And my first time, they hadn't been into the United States in 10 years, up to 2005 or 2006. I can't remember. They came to Laguna Seca. I went to there. I paid for tickets, got VIP Village. We flew to California, me and two of my buddies, and I saw Valentino Rossi's first time in the United States, Nicky's first time back into the United States because he was from the U.S. Yeah. And I got to see his last race at COTA. And that to me was a big deal. I got to see Rossi's first race and Rossi's last race. And it's funny because now all these people come in, they're like, man, I just went to my first MotoGP race. And they're like so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you know what I mean? And they want to buy a motorcycle. They want to go do track days. They want to do all this stuff.
I want the one they're riding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they asked, they're like, well, the one that you had is the closest to the World Superbike bike. It's homologated for World Superbike, which is the V4R. Yeah. Which is really cool. So all these people see this stuff and they want to be a part of it. And I always enjoyed that.
It's super fun. It's like I said, it's good for everyone.
Yeah.
It's good that these people are getting out and experiencing these things, and it's good for the people that are involved with it. Like without people watching it, we can't make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, the next 2 days I have a crazy day. So tonight I'm going to Orlando Lamborghini for the unveil of the Revolt, the electric hybrid one.
Okay.
So I'm going there, and then in the morning I'm driving to Homestead for Ducati Revs. We have a young dude that we're going to be working with, hopefully, that's going to be riding a V4, and he's working his way to MotoGP.
Cool.
So it's really neat. So I'm going to be in the cars tonight and motorcycles tomorrow. So
Sounds like you're living the dream.
You know what? I can't lie. It does feel like it.
I'm jealous, man.
Oh, come on with me.
All this fun stuff, and then you get to go to the Bentley Art Basel thing.
Oh, yeah. So that's going to be really cool. So on the 8th and 9th of December, one of our good family members, Mr. Lightsey, the legend, who's going to be on, got invited to go check out the Bentley Diavolo V4, which is going to be really cool. So we're going to shoot down there, and I'm going to be his guest.
There was a Bentley Diavolo.
Yeah. Technically,
That's cool.
for a while, we couldn't tell anybody, but it's really gorgeous. It's going to be neat. I'm excited to go down.
That's really cool. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Bentley Diavolo. What color is it?
Well, okay, so there's two versions.
That's all I care about is the colors in my Ducati.
Yeah, well,
It's like,
right. You do.
for everybody, like all I want is Ducati to make cool colors in V4s.
Yes.
That's all. I'm just
Which is
tired of the
coming.
red.
Which is coming. We can't talk too much about it, but yeah. Well, we can, but yeah, you'll see it. So if you own and please forgive me, the Mueller Bentley, they'll match your bike with the car that you have. Now the
that's cool.
Ducati guys, they're gonna get the green one, so it's like a money green. It's gorgeous.
Huh.
Yeah, with the same wheels of the Bentley and everything. I'll give you a little sneak peek after this. So what do you have coming up for the future? Before we get out of here.
Well, now we're into the off season for us, so we're trying to sort out what's going on for next year, sort out what clients are going to do what and how we're doing it. So race series testing, just kind of planning out next year and getting ready to execute. Essentially, like running a race team, motorsports it's a logistics business. It's putting the right people in the right place with the right tools at the right time.
Yeah.
It's not. I tell everyone it's not rocket science. You can mess it up, but it's not the most complex thing in the world.
Right.
But you have to have contingencies for when things do go wrong, because I mean this summer there was a stretch of time where air travel was just absolutely terrible in the Northeast, and we had several events we couldn't get guys to, and now you're there with half your crew and you're going, how am I going to do this?
Right.
Which thankfully those events that we had those issues, they were just test events, so it's just going out with the clients out there, or the drivers are out there driving the car around just practicing. If you have that happen on a race weekend, it can definitely screw up what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting away from driving the car and being more of a kind of
Owner, manager.
Operating the team, right?
I still drive the race cars anytime I can, but yeah, I operate the team. We'll go to people, like guys who have places at racetracks. We'll go there and work on their cars for them at the racetrack without any of our actual infrastructure. So we just fly in, work on the race car, go home while they're there for the day. Actually transport and run the cars for them out of our own shop.
Nice.
Awesome. So if we want to come watch you race, I mean, is this like buying tickets to any other like race event?
Exactly the same.
What's the, I guess, circuit, or what division? Like
how can we see you race?
So we race in either IMSA, which is kind of top level of sports car racing in the U.S. Depending on what class, any class in IMSA is going to be the top level of its respective class of racing. So like GT3 and GT4, which is the WeatherTech series, and Michelin Pilot Challenge, which is the GT4 series.
Nice.
We have McLarens that run in both. And then there's another series called the SRO America series, which is a step down in terms of kind of overall professionalism and quality, but a lot of people do it. It's really fun weekends. You don't have as many spectators. It's cheaper to go to than an IMSA weekend. You can get a little more up close and personal because it's not quite so walled off.
Yeah.
Like when we're in IMSA, we're pretty tight about who's under the tent and it's blocked off, and who's crawling around the race car, versus on an SRO weekend we're pretty open about who can come and look.
Right.
do whatever. Our schedule is not so intense. We have a lot of downtime on those weekends, so fans can come in, sit in the race car, talk to the drivers, talk to the crew guys. Like, that's one thing about motorsports as opposed to like soccer. We're talking about soccer.
Yeah.
You go to an Orlando City game, you can't talk to a soccer player,
Right.
Unless you're someone really special.
Right.
You can't talk to a driver. But if you go to a race and you walk up to the back of the trailer, especially if you're a kid, but that's not to say that an adult can't go up and ask to talk to a driver.
Right.
But most of the time, if the driver's not doing anything, we'll absolutely come out, have a conversation with you, show you the race car, show you around the trailer. Like, we're all super friendly and happy to do it because,
That's
like I
huge.
said, we've been trying to grow this sport for a long time. And it's taken off in recent years, and we're finally seeing like there's a lot of people that want to be there and want to see it, and kind of reaping the rewards right now.
So how do we get a car or your car to the dealership to display it?
Yeah.
And we'll have a party.
Well,
we'll like.
our car's in New York at the moment.
Okay.
all right.
So but yeah, there's ways to get there. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad Audi's kind of getting out of racing because there's the whole Volkswagen Group thing, but
Yeah.
that would have been an easy sell. Yeah, it's not too hard. We can figure something out.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to have your car there showing it off.
Yeah, like I said, logistics. I've got it sitting in New York at the moment.
Well, when it gets back, maybe we can do it. We'll post some pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah, for
It'd be
sure.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I think the motorsport stuff's just the greatest thing. I'm so fortunate to have been able to chase it for the past couple of years and to have been in the position to even have the opportunity. Whereas there's a lot of people out there that never get the opportunity who are as good as anyone else.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same thing in motorcycle racing because that takes money too. If you can't get there to start, you can never show anybody that you can do it.
Right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on, man. We
Yeah,
appreciate
man,
you.
this is
Thank you,
awesome.
brother.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, you're part of the family, so
Yeah, this was fun.
thank you.
Good stuff. Well, I guess we'll wrap it. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our social channels. And you can find Paul on Instagram, probably. What is it?
Crucial Motorsports and Paul Holton Racing.
Okay.
Nice.
Good stuff. Give him
Don't
a
forget.
follow and
Rev
don't
up.
forget, Rev up.
Rev up! Rev up!